because I feel it's time we get really bloody honest about the level of bullshit and fuckery we face as parents of neurodivergent kids. So you'll find here some no-nonsense, sometimes sweary accounts of some of my experiences as a parent of a late-identified autistic child. Warts and all, with rants aplenty, and hopefully the occasional nugget of wisdom too. Back in 2019, in the first few months of my getting to grips with the idea that my gloriously quirky but incredibly anxious teenager was an autistic as fuck ADHDer, I felt so alone. I was confused. How could he be autistic? He didn't look autistic. My son Theo was articulate and outgoing and made good eye contact. Theo was just like me. How could he be autistic? As I learned more about neurodivergence, the penny dropped. I had been fed a very narrow view of neurodivergence, autism in particular. I started to uncover answers, but every answer raised more questions, and with every question I felt more and more lost, alone, and confused. The overwhelm was palpable. There was so much information, and so much of it was telling me that my child was broken. It was terrifying and heartbreaking, and I was so desperate to find someone who understood and could help me make sense of it all. So I did what many parents do, and I went to people whose job it was to support neurodivergent kids and their families. Education staff, autism experts, and medical professionals. Instead of finding the answers, I was told that the reason my child was so anxious was likely a combination of puberty and flawed parenting. I was told, yes, he might be autistic, but until we had a formal diagnosis, the wait for which was at least 2 years in our area, I shouldn't label him. Rather, the advice was that I needed to show him I wouldn't be manipulated. Make sure he knew who was the boss. An education professional who I wrongly assumed was an expert told me that the reason my son didn't want to go to school was that he knew I was a soft touch. She told me I needed to put my foot down. A CAMS worker told me that when it came to his anxiety, we needed to teach him to try harder in the face of adversity. More professionals than I can count told me that Theo needed to build resilience. I was told that he needed to learn not to interrupt, not to ask so many questions, and not to be so sensitive. I was warned that he was making himself an obvious choice for bullies. Theo needed to try to fit in and to not draw attention to himself. I was told that my child was broken. The narrative that accompanied that assertion was that it was almost certainly my fault that my gloriously neurodivergent child was struggling. I now know how ableist, misinformed, and harmful that advice was. This book is the book I needed in those early days, the days when our family was in crisis, when my son's anxiety made him so unwell he couldn't go to school, when I had no idea what sensory needs or emotional regulation or trauma profiles were, when I was blissfully unaware of the damage caused by pervasive stereotypes around neurodivergence, when I was drowning under the weight of well-meaning but incredibly unhelpful advice from professionals who I believed knew what was best for our family, when my only point of reference for autism was Dustin Hoffman's performance in Rain Man, when I had no idea that I, too, was autistic. I hope you find peace and comfort in these words. I hope you feel seen. Maybe you'll also pick up some tips or gain confidence in your own abilities. Most of all, I hope you'll see, in the words in this book, evidence that your child is not broken. So come on in, pull up a chair, or a beanbag, or sit on the windowsill, or have a bounce on that yoga ball over there, or just stand and jiggle about. Hell, take your bra off if you like, assuming you're a bra wearer. Take as much or as little of it as feels useful to you. And please know, you are welcome here. You are not alone. Your child is not broken. Heidi Mavir, October 2022. Oh, and just so you know, I have written this book braless. Yes, as well as being a bit of a potty mouth, I'm also an oversharer.